All right, black and white sports supporters. Well, the level of hate that ESPN has for one Caitlin Clark is getting to legendary status.
Did you hear the news? ESPN just released a ranking of the best women's college basketball players, and guess who they left out? Rookie sensation Caitlin Clark. That's right, people. ESPN is throwing shade at the Rookie of the Year once again, and it is turning out to be the biggest mistake they ever made.
What does it take to become a college basketball legend? Well, first, you got to get buckets. I think that's pretty undisputed. I think second, you got to be competitive, have that fire to drive your teammates, right? Third, but certainly not least, you got to win, and you got to win a lot, right?
We said, what makes a top 5 player? Winning. The only strike against Caitlin Clark is that she has not won a national championship.
ESPN is trying their level best to defame Caitlin Clark, which is why they have removed her from the top 5 women's basketball athletes of all time. And don't even get me started on their reasons, because they are more ridiculous than a paper raincoat. That's right, people. According to ESPN, Caitlin's not included at the top because she didn't win any championships at college. Can you believe these excuses?
So ESPN ranks the top 5 women's college basketball players of all time, and they leave Caitlin Clark off for the simple reason of not having a championship.
ESPN is probably known as the biggest sports media outlet out there, dishing out sports analysis and news, but when it comes to Caitlin Clark, their deep-seated resentment is unsettling and completely unbelievable.
Let's be honest, and they're talking about college and this and that and the other. Didn't Caitlin Clark literally have like the 2 biggest college seasons in the history of the planet Earth for a women's basketball player? I mean, it's nuts.
I mean, just think about it. Caitlin Clark has cemented her status as a legendary rookie and silenced her haters multiple times in a row. But still, ESPN is not impressed. On the contrary, they are actively seeking to destroy her legacy as the greatest rookie of all time.
For breaking news hot off the press, and it looked like ESPN has just given Caitlin Clark the worst rankings ever. Now, ESPN just went on record, and the lady that was doing this, I can't even think of her name, but she knew. She just opened up a can of worms. They pretty much said Caitlin Clark is not the GOAT. Why she's not the GOAT? Because she has not won a national title. Now, that cannot be the argument. How do you have the most points scored ever of any women's college basketball player?
That's right, people. Clark has the most points in college games, and she's also the leading 3-point scorer of all time in Division I of women's basketball. Not only that, she has broken countless other records and earned every accolade in the process. But still, ESPN dares to snub her from the list of the best college athletes. This doesn't make any sense.
So ESPN named their 5 greatest women's college basketball players of all time, but I noticed something very funny in how they rolled this thing out. They kind of purposely put Caitlin Clark in the discussion kind of to swat her out.
ESPN released their latest video with the title, "Is Caitlin Clark the greatest of all time in college basketball?" Not only that, they also used her image in the thumbnail to promote their mediocre list. But guess what? They removed the very athlete they used to promote their ranking and snubbed her from the list. Can you believe it? I mean, this is hilarious and ironic at the same time. Don't bite the hands that feed you, ESPN.
I don't even know. I genuinely don't even know how to describe what they gain from just trying to diminish Caitlin Clark's.
Let's be honest, Clark has done way more than any college level athlete you can name, and she's proven herself repeatedly why she's one of the top basketball players of all time. So much so that the leading NBA legends such as Shaq O'Neal and LeBron James have called her the best collegiate player of all time.
She's phenomenal. I'm gonna go on the record and say she's the best female collegiate player ever.
Ever?
Well,
I don't know about you. Have you ever heard of Cheryl Miller,
Ever.
Maya Moore?
Yeah, I said what I said. Ever.
Diana Taurasi?
I said what
NBA veteran Shaquille O'Neal wasn't kidding when he declared that Clark is the best college player in women's basketball. And the most interesting thing, all the other legends seem to agree with his statement.
When he was asked about Caitlin Clark, he said, "I have a great deal of respect for her because I know exactly what it means to be drafted, to be the face of a franchise, and also get the scrutiny from a lot of people that don't believe you're ready for the next jump." And so me watching Caitlin, seeing what she's doing. I've been in support of her since day one because I remember myself going through that, and she has my support 100%. She is a transcendent player.
In other words, Shaquille and LeBron just proved ESPN wrong and threw their rankings in the dustbin because, let's be honest, these legends clearly know more about basketball than all of the ESPN anchors combined.
She broke the records of Kelsey Plum and Sabrina. Like, literally, there is nobody who has been such a front-facing name through a direct reflection of her skill set. But how can you be a top 5 player if you have not won a title?
It's a great point, which is why I agree with you. Convince me, Ari.
ESPN's ratings have created a fierce discussion around Clark's contributions to the college game, and many analysts are calling them out for their unfair treatment of the rookie sensation. Let's be real, Clark is a basketball superstar, and her achievements are nothing short of legendary. For ESPN to not even include her in the top 5 college basketball athletes is downright disrespectful, not only to her as a player, but to the whole of women's sports.
So I just want to say, I don't have anything against you if you don't think that Caitlin Clark is one of the top basketball players, top 5 basketball players of all time. But for the simple reason of not winning a championship, I do have to disagree. And here's why. I think that championships are definitely a team recognition. They are something that a team does together and accomplishes.
That's correct. ESPN is being dishonest in snubbing Clark because their criterion for disqualifying her is flawed in the first place. Let's be honest, winning a championship is a team effort, which means that if a team wins the title, it's not because of a single player, but the contribution of the whole squad. That is why championships are given to teams rather than individual players. And the fact that Caitlin Clark brought a less reputed team like Iowa to the finals, it speaks volumes about her individual talent.
The fact that Caitlin Clark started on a team that really did not have like exponential, like mind-blowing talent existing and brought that team to a championship really says something about you as a player. And when you are ranking players, you are ranking them as an individual unit rather than a team.
But here's the deal, ESPN is being disingenuous on purpose here. We all know that ESPN has a history of spewing hatred about Caitlin Clark, and they are not doing anything out of the blue this time as well. Remember when an ESPN employee told Clark fans not to watch the WNBA anymore?
How many of you guys have ever heard of David Doofus Jr.? The Junior Doofus. He's a woke welfare collector at ESPN. Anyone familiar with Captain Doofus?
That's right, David Dennis, an employee of ESPN as well as the host of Around the Horn, shared a rather controversial tweet where he told a certain portion of Clark's fanbase not to watch the WNBA anymore after she had been eliminated from the playoffs. I hope the people who say they are staying away from the WNBA now that CC is gone actually keep to their promise. Dennis posted on X on Thursday, "These are about to be an all-time series, and their toxicity isn't needed. Let us enjoy things." In other words, an ESPN employee is encouraging the vast majority of WNBA viewers to stop watching the WNBA playoffs, which ESPN exclusively airs. Can you actually believe this? ESPN has been using their employees to spread lies about Clark for a while now, and they have even race-baited people in her name.
Caitlin Clark has exposed the stupidity of racists at ESPN. Let's start with Robert Griffin III saying we've got a race war. That's right, it's a race war between Angel Reese, the African-American player, and Caitlin Clark, the white player. You think it's that deep, do you? It's a conversation about race that you ESPNers can't shut up about. Swin Cash is a legendary basketball player. She says the coverage of Angel Reese's flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark during their matchup was wrong. To have the only highlight of Angel.
That's right. Instead of showing genuine highlights of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, ESPN decided to showcase a distorted and racist perspective of their rivalry and turned it into an ugly race war. I mean, this is completely ridiculous and unprofessional coming from a mainstream sports outlet. But that's not all. ESPN didn't miss any chance, and I mean any chance, of disrespecting Caitlin Clark. Back when she was snubbed from the Olympics team, ESPN's anchor Monica McNutt continued to throw shade at Clark and even downplayed her talents, as if she's a nobody.
If your only argument for Caitlin is that it would have been a great marketing opportunity and you don't have basketball experience or chemistry with the group, listed in your reasoning, I don't want to hear it.
Completely unbelievable, right? How can ESPN so blatantly ignore a celebrated athlete like Caitlin Clark and continue to do so without batting an eye? And now they are disrespecting her again by saying she's not great because of a championship.
I just happen to fundamentally disagree with this particular theory that you have to have a ring to be the best, especially in such a developmental phase of your life as college, from the time you are 18 to the time you are 22.
That's right, ESPN is being deceitful by removing Caitlin Clark from the list and using her name to market it at the same time. If this isn't hypocrisy, I don't know what is.
Best college player of all time. Who do they have in the middle on this thing? They didn't use someone they ended up putting in the top 5 on there. They let off the marketing and branding of this with somebody who's not even on the list. Why would they do that? That's an interesting, kind of paradox to ponder.
ESPN put Caitlin Clark on their video thumbnail because even they know that she's the best basketball player and happens to be the most popular among her peers as well. ESPN might be dishonest, but they are not dumb about Clark and her reputation. They knew that they could market their videos well if they put Clark's face on top because Clark is the most marketable athlete in women's sports right now.
Two-time All-American, two-time Naismith Player of the Year, two-time AP Player of the Year, all-time leading scorer. She broke the records of Kelsey Plum through a direct reflection of her skill set. But how can you be a top 5 player if you have not won a title?
If you give her a single All-American to play with, if you give her more than Kate Martin to play with, if you swap her and put her on UConn instead of Paige Beckers.
That's right. Caitlin Clark didn't have the best teammates during her college days at Iowa, yet she carried the team to the NCAA finals. She didn't have Paige Buchers or Diana Taurasi in her team. Nope. She had to put in 200% in order to take a less skillful team to the playoffs, where she lost, unfortunately. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she's still the best college player in the history of the women's game and arguably the best rookie in basketball history.
ESPN is back to their Indiana Fever Caitlin Clark hating ways after they picked her for the Rookie of the Year and a first-team All-WNBA. Now they're shitting on the Indiana Fever, for lack of a better way of putting it.
ESPN had an agenda of spoiling Caitlin Clark's image, and they thought they could rake in more viewers by throwing shade on her. But let's be real, Caitlin had forced them to recognize her undisputed power on the court. But ESPN is like that child who refuses to stop lying for more candy, as you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and ESPN is doing the same old thing once again.
I mean, truly, that network is ate up with the anti-Caitlin Clark campaign. Monica McNutt and so many others over there that talk basketball have run their mouth about Clark in a derogatory way, and all the rookie has done is lead the WNBA in assists, and she's among the league leaders in I don't know how many other categories.
You know what's more ironic? Clark was the only 5-star recruit going into the Iowa team, and she was already dreaming of securing playoffs. Clark didn't just dream though, she brought her team into the finals without having an All-American teammate in her squad.
What Caitlin Clark did for Iowa is incomparable. You can't just say no rings equals not top 5. That is the most lazy argument, because that is the Bill Russell greatest of all time argument. Like, it is. Caitlin Clark literally went to her hometown team. She went to Iowa as their only 5-star recruit in a freaking in over a decade.
And yet ESPN chooses to demolish this generational athlete? How can they be dishonest and unjust? Make it make sense, because honestly, this is something that doesn't make sense. ESPN has been disrespecting Caitlin Clark for months now, and it seems like they are back at it. However, they can only try because Clark has already consolidated her status as the leading women's athlete in the WNBA, as well as the most popular player in all of women's sports. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more basketball updates. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.